Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
After the drivers last week went splashing around the track at Okayama, we head on over to week 3 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series from Laguna, Seca, home to one of the most iconic corners in all of world motorsport. Hello everybody, Paul Smith and Arjuna Kankapati here for you today. And Arjuna, the drivers certainly had a challenge last week. This week it's a completely different challenge.
No rain, but to be fair, it doesn't rain very often around Laguna Seca, and when it does, it just adds to the allure that the track really has. And you mentioned the corner that it's most known for is the corkscrew, but it's not the trickiest, it's not the most terrifying at this track. It's going to be really interesting. I was here with Porsche for Rennsport Reunion last year. It was really cool, Paul, seeing all the vintage Porsche race cars. So many cool cars that I've only dreamt of seeing and seeing on YouTube. I'm very excited to see what it races like now. Of course, we've got the older version on iRacing, older tarmac, very bumpy. Short races, though, I think we're in for a treat.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you were there for the tractor race. And well, this is how things look here then in the journey to the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2025. We started off with the qualifying series earlier this summer. The top 15 from those drivers then qualified themselves into this championship, along with the bottom 15 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup contenders from this year. It's the top 15 from here that then make it into next year's, or get the chance to qualify for next year's Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2025. There is drivers gaining entry through one of the 5 Porsche market slots, and we'll see 1 or 2 of them today, but certainly, Arjuna, it's been an interesting opening to the championship.
Absolutely, and you mentioned, of course, those Porsche market slots. We saw Will Chadwick last week really drive his way into victory lane and proving that that can be a route to success. The feature and sprint format, though, this is something that is new to the drivers that have come from the qualifying series. The idea being they are introduced to the format in the Contender series. The drivers that come down from the Super Cup, they obviously know how this works. Points paid out in qualifying, and then we start as they run. For the sprint race, we invert the top 8 for the feature race, where we pay double the points, and points also trickle back a little bit further, Paul, so there's more to fight for in the overall equation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every point is worth getting in this championship. It really is. After today, we will be at the halfway point of this Contender series after starting off at Portimao on the Algarve earlier in September. Then last week, Okayama at the absolutely sodden Okayama International Circuit. Then next week, we head to the newly rescanned and updated Zolder, and then Sachsenring, a track that the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup itself has never been to. That could throw a real wild card in it for these drivers. And then Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps at the end of October rounds off this 6-week championship. And, well, looking at the championship, the top end, we're not too concerned about them at the top. It's a good margin between Mitchell de Jong, Elvis Rankin and Tristan Iglesias. Mitchell's not taking part today. He's got other commitments, so it gives some of us an opportunity out there. But it's this page here, Arjuna, that's the most important one. You see the cut-off line below Bryn Collins. Those on the outside are wanting to get in.
And it's really treacherous as well, right? Precariously placed, if you will, because we saw Dane Warren after the first round. He was up inside of the top 10. Disastrous round 2. Now on the outside looking in. So got to keep that in mind. We've got Aaron Vasquez back in the mix as well. He's not going to be doing every round of the championship. He missed last round. I think he'll be missing the next round as well. So he's got a lot to try and figure out as he tries to make his way into that top 15. But it's all to play for, Paul, even if you just miss out. The expectation that we have every year is there's a couple of drivers that will choose to not come back to the Super Cup. So 16th, 17th, 18th, you've still got a chance. Make sure you're ready there to fight.
Absolutely. You talked and touched on Will Chadwick. He was one of our Porsche market entries, winning the feature race. And do you know what? Last week, he looked good for it as well. He was pulling away at the front as well and did a tremendous job. And well, he's currently inside the qualifying positions right now. He's just got to keep that momentum going, hasn't he?
Had a great chat with him at the Esports World Cup earlier this summer, or like at the end of the summer, I guess. We're in the fall, technically, where he was driving for FaZe Clan in the Porsche. And he was saying that heading into the Contender Series, he was feeling confident. And Paul, Will's a driver that I think sometimes doubts himself, right? He sometimes puts that seed of uncertainty in his own mind. And it's good that he had that, self-assuredness that, you know what, I've got the speed. I've been able to start putting some results together. Won the iRacing Nürburgring 24 Hours earlier this year in this Porsche Cup car with Share at Esports. It was a stellar drive against some of the World Championship drivers he might be competing against next year. It's been really cool to see, but now, at this point in the season, he needs 2 more rounds of solid results before he can start to relax and start to think about 2025.
Another driver has had a good start to his Contender Series is Carlos Fenolosa for Drago Racing. And he's been someone who's been a bit unlucky in the last couple of Contender Series that we've covered, Arjuna. Especially last year, just missing out in the final week of the championship. But this season so far, he's got a solid run going, and he's doing well for him up inside the top 10.
Yeah, and of course left, well, that's not exactly where you're meant to go, Carlos. Right as our director cut to you as well. Shame. But after leaving Altus Esports, he's linked up with Drago Racing, and I think he's found a good home. That Drago Racing team, let's not forget, they won a World Championship last year with Przemysław Lemonek in an open-wheel car, but this year we've seen them really deliver across of everything. They're in the IndyCar Pro Series as well on Thursday nights, and they've got plenty of drivers that have showed their speed in this Porsche Cup car. Only Nicolas Matteo and Carlos Fenolosa inside of the top 15, but let's remember one thing, Paul, as we get ready to head into qualifying. There were 12 Coanda cars coming into the championship. I don't know off the top of my head how many are inside of the top 10. What I do remember is that 9 of them are inside of the top 15 right now.
It's 7 in the top 10 right now for Coanda. It helps that I'm able to see the standings from my position right now. But drivers will be getting themselves ready for qualifying here. And it's a tricky old track, isn't it? There's very little room for any error here. You go wide a little bit, you're onto the dirt, and that's your 1 lap ruined.
The only thing that I didn't get to do at Wrenchport Reunion that I really wanted to do was go and walk around the track, like the track itself. I walked around the places that you're allowed to go walk, but there was, on the first day we were there, they unveiled the brand new 911 GT3 Wrenchport, the unrestricted road-going sort of GT3 idea, but yeah, it was so cool. The reason why you want to walk around a track like this, Paul, is you need to try and understand where the bumps are, right? Because the lines that you take are dependent on those bumps. They're going to play some games in qualifying, trying to warm up the tires. Don't worry too much about that. I think one thing to keep in mind here, the corner before the corkscrew, I say every time I commentate at a race here, that is the most difficult, that is the scariest corner at this track.
Oh, absolutely. It is such a narrow line through there, and you've got to carry all of your speed uphill through that section of the track as well, heading towards the corkscrew. You can see Bryn Collins on screen, and look at how much he's having to work his wheel left and right to try and get some temperature into those tyres. He's also adjusting things behind him as well. It looks a busy old cockpit there for Bryn.
Just a little bit, and this is just the warm-up lap. Let's not forget, he's still got to actually run his way onto the flying lap itself. Down through Rainy Curve here. Momentum, one thing that you are always trying to keep and to build through the course of this lap and maintain. It's a lap as well where it's so easy to snatch a tire, to lock up, or even on power down, slide the rear end around, things you cannot afford to do. Jump on board with Collins as we run towards the line and run down into the Andretti hairpin, the first braking zone of the lap.
Yeah, onto the brakes, then it's downhill braking, so you've got to brake earlier than you imagine that you would do. Double apex left-hander at Andretti, running out wide, get it up to the left-hand side, and then brake. Use the curb on the inside. Try and not touch the red sausage type curb on the inside of these two corners, but get as close as you dare to it, or else it will unsettle the car and push it out wide into the dirt. Heading towards turn 5, this is an important corner as well, to carry the speed through this left-hander all the way uphill now, and then it's this corner, turn 6, the most difficult corner on the track. Get that hooked in right. When you get it hooked up, it feels so good. Up then, through the rear half straight to the corkscrew. You can't see it until there. That's when you see it. Get onto the anchors. Throw the car at the horizon, then just hope that it hooks up. Through this long turn 9, you always feel like you can carry speed when you can't. This corner, though, cambered in your favour. You can carry speed through into 10, and then finally turn 11. Such a clumsy, slow speed corner. Important to get the run out of the corner right. Don't get yourself an off-track instant point. Bryn doesn't look too happy with that lap.
And so we'll see the time start to run their way on in as a couple of other drivers set up late in the session and now try, knowing what they've got to beat, to see what they can do. Josh Rogers, quite disappointing, I think, for him in qualifying, to be about 3.5 tenths or so off of Florian Lebigra, who's really made a bit of a statement over the course of this season. His Team Redline teammates not really here to support him in terms of being on the track. They're just watching and helping him behind the scenes and putting himself up front. Exactly what he needs to do. Iglesias in the Coanda car alongside.
Yeah, Florian wants a good round out of this week. Roger Christensen following through the right-hander there. You see the focus on his face as well. Just look at that, the little lean in as well. Looking up at different parts of the screen as well, maybe comparing how his Delta is doing compared to his optimal or his best lap time that he's done. And then onto the braking point and hard down the gears. Wow, as they go through the left-hander there, Christensen, and then onto the brakes. And I tell you what, if you won prizes for focus, Roger Christensen would certainly be winning some right now.
Not a bad lap, and I tell you what, I think given that the field a bit stretched in terms of where some of the drivers you'd expect to be at the front maybe aren't, can Christensen spring some surprises? Answer is no. That's going to be him just around 15th or so, 17th, at least for the time being. Here's a look at Feneloso. We talked about him just before the qualifying sessions got underway. Focus for him down through the Rainy Curve. Got to be careful through this penultimate corner, not push out too wide, because if you bottom out over the curb, you can find yourself on the gravel. He doesn't risk it at all. And now, brake a little bit early, want to get onto the power as aggressively as you can out of the final corner. The drag race to the line. Can he rise his way up into the top 10? Still waiting for his teammate to put a time onto the board as well. Not into the 22s for Feneloso.
Yeah, just outside there, 11th for him. As we look further down the order, Chunye Zhang is now doing his lap. We had the driver move up into the top 5. I believe that was Xander Reed. But yeah, at the moment, looking good for Lebigra, Gianni and Iglesias. Across the line for Zhang, 25.5. for him. So a little bit off the pace, unfortunately, for him. I don't see any other drivers right now putting in any lap times. So it's either they've failed to set a lap time or they're choosing not to. But here is going to be your pole position lap then, Arjuna. And I tell you what, running it wide out of that last corner to carry the speed as much as possible.
Yeah, so let's jump on board and ride with Labigra. You can set up on the outside and open up the corner, run off the track. That is fine. I saw some comments in chat. But then got to be very careful through this rest of the first sector because there's gravel everywhere and anti-cut curbs as well. This is a crucial run that you're coming up to now underneath this Firestone Bridge because out here of turn 4, short blast to turn 5 can be very, very easy to make a small mistake. Open up an opportunity for someone to try and pass you. You'll try and brake as deep as you can to now climb up in towards this next couple of corners and watch how blind it is as well on entry. You're just trying to reference a turning point of some kind. Again, anti-cut curb on the inside. Be very careful to avoid clattering over it. You'll send yourself out wide instantly. Now the corkscrew, blind entry, brake, and find your reference point. There's a tree when you'll turn to the right and slam it down through the gears once again into rainy curb. And this is where we've been talking about momentum. Don't overdrive the car. Don't ask for more than it's got left to give you in these final couple of corners. Labigra uses a bit more of the curb on the left-hand side to now set himself up on the right-hand side as well through the final corner. This is a driver that very much knew exactly where he could put the car, what his car could do, and Labigra on pole position here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
There we go then, that's how things stand. A couple of big names that have not set a qualifying time as there is Florian. Get himself prepared for the race. Dame Warren, Bobby Zelensky, Luis Belike as well. There's a number of drivers who have not set themselves a lap time here, so big push for them from the back of the field to try and make places. Michael Gianni, though, he'll be happy on the front row of the grid. Right, let us take you through your starting grid then here for this week number 3 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. It's Florian Labigra for Team Redline, who leads them away in pole position. Alongside him is Michael Gianni on row 1. Row 2, Tristan Iglesias and Xander Reed, with Oscar Pai and Matti Sipola. He'll be hoping for a good result this week in 6th place. Julian Sonnen and Will Chadwick then share the 4th row of the grid, with Becca Garcia and Daniel Pastor then on row number 5. The 6th row, the returning Aaron Vasquez and Carlos Fenalosa. Row number 7 for Rafael Silva and Bryn Collins, with Marina Sarica and Josh Rogers. He'll be disappointed with that down there on row number 8. Row 9, Jakub Maciejewski and Elliot Veyron. 10th row of the grid then for Daniel Savini and Roger Christensen, with Nicholas Mateo, who showed real promise last week. Alongside him is Andrew Carone. And then it's Pascal Costa and Leo Gariboli then on row number 12. The 13th row, Chunya Zan, and then it's drivers who did not set a lap time. Elvis Rankin, Quentin Violate, Lassie Bach, Simone Maria Marciano, Luis Belike, and then, as I say, Bobby Zelensky and Dane Warren at the very back of grid. Drivers forming themselves up on the grid for the sprint race then. We've got 30 seconds, Arjuna. Key to this one?
I think if you're Florian Labigra, you just want to control and hold as many of those Coanda drivers behind. I think that fight for the invert top 8, remember, 8th position grabs pole for the main race, 50 points as opposed to 25 on the line. That's something to keep in mind, and guess who's there right now? A bit of a reverse grid merchant in some ways. Will Chadwick, what can he do as we get ready to go?
Drivers set then for this race. They'll look towards the starter's gantry. And engine revs pick up and rise.
Green flag, green flag.
And we are underway. It's a good start from second place then for Michael Gianni. Florian Labigra bogged down just a little bit, but he's crucially got the inside line into the Andretti hairpin. Through the left they go. They're going 2-3 wide through the Andretti hairpin. Labigra holds on to the lead. That's crucial for him after not getting the best of starts there. As they come through this turn 3 into turn number 4, they'll start sorting themselves out into single file. We have got drivers who have had a couple of issues out there, but they're still staying up at the front as they were. That's Sipola where he started. Will Chadwick Beckham just see him moving forward through all of this? So keep an eye on Beckham here.
And I think there was teammates side by side behind running up to this turn 5. Very dangerous to be wheel to wheel, and the challenge from Michael Gianni, who got a great run up towards the corkscrew. Nothing that Florian Lebiga can really do to defend here, as much as he will try and stick wheel to wheel. He'll box Gianni out down to Rainy Curve. I thought there would be a fight back there. Around for the 83 of Bobby Zelensky. More drama for him here on the iRacing Esports Network.
Lebiga, he stays in front for the time being ahead of Michael Gianni, but Gianni's showing his intention here. He wants to get by and he wants to take maximum points. Missed the apex there for Florian of the final corner. That gives Gianni the opportunity to hook onto the back here, and here comes Tristan Iglesias through all of this as well. Heading into that Andretti hairpin. So difficult to try and go around the outside of that hairpin. And look at them, they're all just concertinaing together, little bumping and barging there, but so far Lebiga doing all that he needs to do at the front, but he's got a tough task because look behind, it's Gianni, Iglesias, Reed and Pye, all Coanda painted cars. I want to point out as well, Josh Rogers, 16th to 11th on the opening lap.
Still not an ideal qualifying, but he's making amends as Pascal Costa in the Impulse 68 slides his way off the track. Rejoins and can see some of the damage to the rear end. He's also going to get passed by Andrew Carone. So now Costa running at the tail end of the 32 car pack. Now, this is only a 10-lap race, so it's relatively short. The feature race that will come up afterwards will be 20 laps in length. These are still very, very quick and intense races, and so that's why when you see them closing up to one another, it's all just in the effort of putting some pressure onto the driver in front, hoping you'll unsettle them, because at this level of racing, whether it's real or virtual, you're not expecting the drivers to slip up too much. You need to force them, put the pressure into a mistake. Bobby Zelensky's already rounding to the corkscrew as they pay bowling down into the corner.
And that was Andrew Carone then. That was what happened to him on that one. It was a dive to the inside. I didn't catch who it was that made. So it was contact earlier on, and well, yeah, it was just. You're absolutely right. We're not at Watkins Glen. We can't go bowling here. So what do we do instead?
Well, they're wishing they were at our mid-season tournament earlier this year, which was an interesting format that we had as well. One that Michael Gianni did quite well at, so he'll have fond memories of that. Maybe why he's running quite well up here in second as well. We're focused just to the cut line, though. The bright pink machine, that's Will Chadwick, who had success at previous round at Okayama. This is another look, and you can see Zelensky gets that bit of contact, and I mean, it could have been worse for him. I mean, he lost a bit of time. At least his car's still in one piece relatively.
Yeah, exactly. As there's that contact there and around.
Lasser back, by the way, the other car.
Yeah, and there, for good measure, was a little bit of a dumping into turn 4. And that's what happened a little bit later on for Pascal Costa in the early stages of this race. A very bruised and battered car, but the Porsche spare parts department will be delighted to take the invoices, hand out invoices for that damage repairs.
Yeah, the problem is that when you damage a car, you've got to get the damaged parts wrapped as well in the livery. That's what makes it so difficult in the real world. In the virtual world, you don't think about things like this, do you? That's a bit of a mistake from Matti Siepler. Opened the door for Beckham Jasir, who missed the first round of the championship. Not all went his way in the previous round for him, so establishes himself with a bit of a better qualifying effort this time by. Settles into the midway part of this first race of the evening, and as we jump on board with Josh Rogers, now the door gets opened up for Rogers to take his move and make his way past Beckham Jasir. Opportunistic driving as he slides his way up into what would be feature race pole if he finishes here.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to settle here, though. I think he's going to carry on pushing forward. Because if you sit in 8th place, it just takes one little incident, one mistake from somebody behind, and before you know it, you're facing the wrong way and you're starting towards the rear of the field. So right now, I think Rogers, he'll be wanting to move forward a bit more, get a few more championship points as well for him to try and make up for what happened last week with his trials and tribulations at Okayama. I think there's a lot of drivers after last week were not happy with how things went in terms of their own performances, were they? But I mean, those conditions last week were just treacherous.
Absolutely. Not something that we're accustomed to, something we're hoping to see a bit more of, though, when we return for the Super Cup in 2025. Rogers makes his move now on Matti Sieppula, not settling indeed. How much further can he move forward? Expect him to be someone to watch in the main event as well. If he's charged his way up already 9 positions in this race, probably can do it from 8th to 1st if he can win the sprint race. A look at Beckham Jasir, by the way, shows all of his accolades from karting as well. So I always love to see the sim rooms of the drivers. He's made his bed. He's got trophies behind him. That's a pretty good view, all things considered.
Yeah, pro tip there. If you're going to be streaming and we can see your bed, we will judge you if you haven't made your bed.
Yeah, but I didn't make my bed this morning, Paul. The thing is, no one can see it.
Yeah, exactly. Can we see it on camera? No, we can't. As Jasir closes up to the back of Sieppula. Matti, he had a nightmare last week, I think it's fair to say. He's outside of the top 15 coming into this week as Matti, so he's wanting a good result out of this, and a reverse grid pole position would be a boon for him. But look at that, he's basically opened the door there. It's almost as if he'd had a slowdown penalty or something.
I don't even know if he had a slowdown or if that was just a driver that saw a move forthcoming, overreacted to it, and now is going to lose out another spot as Julian Sonnen tries to take advantage. I mean, that's a bit timid from Matti Sieppula, if anything, if we're being honest. And timid's not a word that we want to use to describe any driver in this field, knowing how intense and elbows out the racing always is. And so take a look at Sieppula. There's not a look of frustration, not a look of concern just yet, but I do get the sneaking suspicion he'll not be the most thrilled with dropping out of that 8th position and the inverted pole for the main event. He's got 5 more laps to try and fight his way forward, though. What's he going to be able to do? Is his car also starting to fall off, Paul? Because well, we've talked about there being relatively little setup options to tweak on this car, but whatever little options you have at a track like this, which, you know, old surface that we've got here on iRacing as well, it could potentially start to eat into the tires. Is he starting to struggle just a bit?
I think we'll potentially see more of that in the main race coming up after this one. If you are wondering, this is the sprint race for tonight. One more race coming up for you folks after this one, and we do invert the top 8 results to set your grid for that second main race that's coming up in about, well, as they cross the line, 4 laps time as we go across. So it's Florian Lebigra ahead of Michael Jani. He's not been able to pull out a massive lead at the front, but it is slowly growing.
So there's lots of purple and orange at the front, Paul. You know, 2 drivers who aren't here that I think probably we'd expect. One, Elvis Rankin, not qualified very well, hasn't really moved forward in this race. He is fairly comfortable in points, though, so I don't think that's so much of a disappointment for him. The driver that's going to be slightly disappointed, Dane Warren, down in 20th position, who's grabbing the final point available in the sprint race. Remember, the sprint race goes down to 20th for points, 25th gets points in the feature race. But for a driver who's dropped out of the cutoff after round 1 with a disastrous round at Okayama, he cannot afford another round like that. He needs to get the move on sooner rather than later.
And it all started with not being able to set a qualifying lap time either. So it just goes to show how even a mistake in qualifying can have a massive effect, a detrimental effect on your weekend's driving. That is for sure. Well, as they carry on through the field. And yeah, Warren just ahead of Quentin Violate in that Apex Racing Team car. Josh Rogers gained 9 positions throughout this race. Nicholas Matteo is on, let's have a look, 5 places gained as well. So some big moves up the field for a few of our drivers, but Matti Sieppula down 4 places. He'll be a little bit disappointed with that, given where he started.
Again, timidness, not necessarily the word that you want to be use to describe you in a field like this with these short races. To be fair, I think that's true of the Super Cup, both in the real and virtual worlds, right? These are cutthroat races with no margin for error, and that's why it's so great that there's no ABS, no traction control for these drivers as well, right? They are very much left to try and get the most of what is a very, very difficult car, and a car that, even with ABS and traction control, I think I had a chat with, who was it? Someone who's driven these cars in the real world before, and he was saying that he had to adapt to driving the car with ABS for the first time. It was weird for him, and so, you know, that's something you never think about, right, Paul? Sometimes it's more difficult to add driver aids to a car because when you get so used to the lack of driver aids.
Yeah, you do have to adjust your driving style. You're absolutely right there, and that certainly has effect too. You got this is where the adaptability of drivers can really come into play. By the way, live point standings as things stand at the moment is Tristan Iglesias to the top of the field, Chadwick Sonnen at the bottom of the top 10, Rogers up into 7th right now as things stand. As I say, that can always change, but there's the cut-off point, and Oscar Pye at the moment is looking strong, just 1 point behind Bryn Collins, outside the top 15 there as things stand, and Dame Warren, well, 17th, and he's only getting a solitary point so far.
Yeah, this is not the day that he would have wanted. Oscar Pye brought himself closer, but maybe not close enough, at least just yet. We'll be very curious to see how the next couple of races go. Of course, he's got a teammate in front of him, so I think for Contender there's going to be a bit of a game to try and just help their teammates out and not fight too much in amongst one another. As we get ready, though, to head on to the final lap of this race, Florian Lebigra, I said that qualifying lap for him, Paul, was important, knowing that he had plenty of Contender drivers behind. He's the only Team Redline representative in the field. He's trying to join some of his teammates already in the Super Cup. And this has been a stellar drive so far. 9 laps without much mistakes. One more lap before a sprint race victory for him.
He had to fight on those opening couple of laps for Michael Jarnett. He's had to earn this one. Not the best launch off of the start line either from pole position for Florian Lebigra, but certainly held on, showed his fighting spirit out there, and the Team Redline driver, as you mentioned, doing it alone, and he's just got about just under, or just over, should I say, half a lap to go here. He's not comfortable, but he's got a nice little gap between himself and Michael Jarnett. Tristan Iglesias, though, comfortable in that 3rd place ahead of Xander Reed, Oscar Pye. Will Chadwick and Josh Rogers, the 6th and 7th.
And Beckham Jasir, inverted pole. Paul, we talked about him, right, at the pre-show of last round. Missed the first race, a driver that you and I think there's a lot of potential. There's a real chance he could still make the field. 50 points are up for grabs for him in the main race if he can hold on, but there's going to be some strong drivers alongside and behind come the green flag.
Absolutely. Through towards the final corner then. Onto the brakes, get this right, don't cause yourself some issues on the final lap, and Florian Lebigra is going to be a race winner in the sprint race here for week number 3 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. You barely tell it he's won, but I can assure you he'll be happy with that. He finds himself then winner by half a second. As you mentioned, Beckham Jasir in that inverted grid position for him in 8th place, so he'll be looking good for race number 2. Biggest mover in that race was the driver that we were looking at there, Josh Rogers, gaining a ton of positions throughout that race. Well, it's Florian Lebigra who wins that one, half a second in that Team Redline car, ahead of 4 Contender Esports drivers, Michael Jarnett, Tristan Iglesias, Xander Reed and Oscar Pye. Then it's Will Chadwick, race winner, main race winner last week, finds himself in 6th place ahead of Josh Rogers. Beckham Jasir 8th, gets pole position for the main race. Julian Sonnen and Matti Sipila just outside that top 8. Daniel Pashto then ahead of Carlos Fenalosa with Bryn Collins and Marina Sarica. Aaron Vasquez and Nicolas Mateo. Number 1 that was working his way through the field and ahead of Elliot Veyron. Daniel Savini, Dame Warren gets himself 2 points in the end ahead of Jakub Maciejewski, the last point scorer in that sprint race. Quentin Violate then ahead of Luis Pelique with Lasse back. Simone Maria Marchena, Roger Christensen, Bobby Zelensky, he'll be kicking himself with that along with Elvis Rankin. Andrew Caron and Pascal Costa ahead of Rafael Silva. And then it was Chunye Zhang and not finishing the race, the Apex Racing Academy driver of Leo Gariboli. So that is the sprint race done and dusted with here. And well, the drivers now will get themselves 5 minutes to be prepared, get themselves ready for the main race. Just having a couple of technical issues with Arjuna, so I'm afraid you're stuck with me. What have we got to look forward to then in this main race? Well, first of all, it's the inverted reverse grid, which is the main thing. And it'll be Becca Jacia starting on pole position. He'll be happy to be doing that. And, well, that Williams Esports driver got a good chance for a good result here. But alongside him, it's a hard charging from that sprint race. Josh Rogers then, he's going to be starting in that second place. I will say that Josh, he started further down the field, down in 16th, ended up in 7th in the end in that one. And so he had a really good run. He's shown that he can do some overtaking there. And as a welcome back, Arjuna, to our commentary booth, we're going to have an intriguing second race, main race, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this one. My internet held on by the narrowest of margins just to the end of the race, and then decided to make Paul's poor voice go for a couple of minutes. But we're back, we're all right. The joys of live broadcasting from all around the world. This is double the length of the race. I think we touched on that a few times, Paul, but why is that important? The balance of the car. It does shift in a race like this, and the teams that have been able to dial in the cars the best with the small adjustments they have available to them in a car that is limited in its setup adaptability, I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on, because we saw Rogers charge his way forward. I'm assuming probably used up a decent amount of his tires. Won't be able to charge as hard, I'm guessing, in this main race.
You're absolutely right there by touching on the fact that tyre management is going to be a big thing. We saw track temperature at 32 degrees Celsius in that first race. Not the hottest that I've ever seen around here. It's partly cloudy skies, so there will be a little bit of sunshine on the track. 31 degrees track temperature now, so it's not the hottest conditions that these drivers have ever faced in this Porsche. I think back to a race in Interlagos that Kevin Ellis Jr. won at, where it was 58 degrees Celsius. So, yeah, we've seen some crazy temperatures in these cars, and tyre management, it can be key to whether you get yourself a really good result or end up dropping off towards the end of the race.
And this track is, of course, not far from the coastline itself, so it does tend to get its fair share of fog and cooler conditions. I still remember last year when I was driving down to the track, I got to Monterey, the town, and it was just a wall of fog in front of me. Like, it was legitimately, I was thinking, how are they going to drive around the track like this? But that was late in the evening. During the day, it clears up a little bit more. It's just one of those tracks that, Paul, let's be honest, through video games for the most part, has been enshrined in motorsports folklore. The first track to be added to Gran Turismo back in 1999, and ever since then, you know, Top Gear, they did their comparison here when Jeremy Clarkson tried to drive around on a game versus on the track, and he learned that he's a bit more scared in the real world. It's just one of those legendary tracks. It's so cool, and hopefully we'll see a good race in about 10 seconds time.
Yes, fellow Yorkshireman Jeremy Clarkson getting to do that. And yes, I mean, you're just aging me by the fact that you mentioned 1999. I was 15 then, so yeah, great. Thank you for that. As the drivers get themselves to the end of the warm-up session, and yeah, I remember getting that that particular game.
Hey, you brought up your age this time, not me. No shots fired from this side today.
Well, let's take a look then at the grid. So it's, as we say, inverted top 8 from the results of race number 1. So it's Beckham Chasia, the Williams Esports driver, alongside him Josh Rogers. Then it's Will Chadwick and Oscar Pye on row number 2. The third row is Andy Reid and Tristan Iglesias. Michael Jarney then on row number 4, sharing that with sprint race winner for Team Redline, Florian Lebegra. Then it's Julian Sonnen and Matti Sipler. All these drivers now starting where they finished. Daniel Pashto and Carlos Fernalosa on row number 6. 7th row, Bryn Collins and Marina Sarica ahead of Aaron Vasquez and Nicolas Mateo. Then it's Elliot Veyron and Daniel Savini rounding out row number 9. 10th row, Dane Warren and Jakub Maciejewski ahead of Quentin Violate and Luis Belike. Then it is Lasse Bach and Simone Mania Marcheno. Drivers further down the field getting involved in incidents in that first race. Christensen, Zelensky, Rankin, Caron, Costa and Silva. Then at the very back of the field, Zahn and then Leo Gariboli, who's had a difficult time stepping up. I've seen the progression of Leo from commentating on him in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain and seeing how he's progressed. He was an AM champion in that series and how he's progressed forward into the pro standings there. But this is just a whole new level, isn't it, Arjuna?
This is that next step, right? And there is a jump even from the qualifying series to the Contender series. And there's another jump, you better believe it, from the Contender series to the Super Cup. Every step of the ladder, you've got to adapt. You've got to learn some new skills. And Paul, you've got to rise to the challenge as we get ready to go for the main event here today.
So the drivers face 20 laps around this track at Laguna Seca. Engine revs are rising. It's a long hold. We'll get the green flag and away we go, and it's a good start from Beckham Chasia at the front of the grid. Pulls away well, ahead of Josh Rogers. Will Chadwick slotting in behind him. Oscar Pye's trying to go around the outside of Chadwick here through the Andretti hairpin for the first time in this race. And Pye's going to have the inside. Oh, there's carnage further down the field. Oh, there's a Coanda car, a couple of Coanda cars spinning. Dane Warren is one of those drivers. Daniel Savini's down at the back. Quentin Violate's had issues. Oh, drama on the exit of the Andretti hairpin. I hate to say that it's almost inevitable at that corner, but it's almost inevitable at that corner, Arjuna.
I was more surprised we didn't see any of it at turn 1 in the sprint race, and so maybe a bit more inevitable that eventually we saw it. And so now, I think if you're Beckham Chasia and Josh Rogers, don't fight. Just let yourselves try and open up your advantage to Pye, Chadwick, Reid, and everyone else behind. There's no top 8 invert to now think about. No, it's just points, and so big sends. Oh, that was a send and a half, but they've slowed it down in time, and so as they fight off the corner, Julian Sonnen and Nicolas Mateo for 13th position, down through Rainy Curve. Sonnen gets it stuck.
Yeah, good move from Sonnen there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. He had to make it stick there. As Rogers and Chasia are switching places as well at the front of the field. It's a change of the lead, and it's Rogers ahead of Chasia, so that must be into that final corner. Rogers must feel that he's got the pace here and think now's the time to make the move. Well, I'm the closest to Beckham Chasia, and now just focus on my own race and pull away at the front. Beckham Chasia, I don't think you need to be panicking right now. If you can stick with Josh, you're in with a good haul of points here.
And who would have, thought that after Rogers qualified down in 17th that he would be here? It's a mistake from Beckham Chasia, as simple as that. But maybe that's the pressure, right? You see a name like Josh Rogers behind you in the rearview mirror, and you make a small mistake. That's the step up that we're talking about, Paul, and that's something that Beckham will get better for at the end of the day, right? The only thing that good drivers take from mistakes is learning opportunities. They don't beat themselves up, maybe for a little bit, but they don't beat themselves up for too long. They get back to the task at hand. I think for now, though, he's going to be more focused behind, because look at Rogers, down through Rainy Curve already, a quarter of a second clear.
Yeah, certainly pulling away is Josh. I mean, you don't accidentally become a 2-time Porsche Tagore Esports Super Cup champion, which is what Josh Rogers is. First ever champion in 2019, 2021, the last year that he ran in the series, he was champion. So he's been a little bit out of this championship, and he's working or trying to work himself back into the series. Not always guaranteed, though.
Notice how dark it got, Paul. There's a healthy amount of cloud cover that's come over the track, and so it goes back to balance, right? Who's now got the ability to maybe push a bit more? The track temperature might drop as a result of that. You can lean on the tires. I'm very curious. Once we get past lap 10, who's going to be the movers and who's going to be the droppers? Who's going to have the speed? Who's going to be losing the speed?
Yeah, you make a very good point there. Just a cloud getting in front of that sun, California sun, and as drivers go through the left-hander here at turn 6, carry the speed up the hill towards the corkscrew once again through the rear half straight and onto the brakes. And you're not really going to be seeing many moves, I don't think, in the top 8 positions right now. Florian Lebigra, where he started in 8th place, and I think right now it's just a case of just stay as you were. He didn't look the happiest, even though he won the sprint race, Arjuna. I think he's very much focusing on maybe this main race.
It's 25 points, right? But the difference between winning the sprint race and winning the feature. So it sounds crazy to say, but you'd almost prefer to qualify 8th, finish 8th in the sprint race, and then win the main race, because it gives you more points than qualifying first, winning the sprint race, and finishing down in 8th if I've done my math correctly. So it's just one of those weird things to think about, right? And so I think the one thing that we are at this stage of this championship looking like, I think we can say, is for a driver that's having to shift his focus between an Indy car on Thursday and then this Porsche Cup car on Saturday, top 10 in the championship coming into today, solid points haul already, it would seem. He's doing a great job. This is exactly what he would have wanted at this point in the championship.
Yeah, certainly. It's just getting the results. You've got to get the results and keep the consistency in a series like this. We're seeing how Dane Warren, after having a bad week last week, only just getting 2 points in that first race, finishing 19th. He's down in 29th right now as Dane, after having issues on the opening lap of the race. And that's the thing, if you qualify yourself further down or start the second race further down the order, you're in the danger zone, aren't you? Here we go, here's replays.
Well, lap 1, 3 wide. Who's going to get the worst of it? To Quinton Violate in the Apex Racing Team car. He was on the inside and somehow got sandwiched with one of those cars that he was alongside with. Couldn't quite figure out exactly how that even went down, but I think that's just turn 1. The concertina, this view from up above, you can see some sends further up through the field as well, so people weren't taking no for an answer by any means, and it just kind of runs a lazy line, maybe a bit too high through the double left-hander and into the gravel as well for Daniel Savini, who has not had the easiest Contender series by any means.
Here's what happened to Warren then, so it's all going to check up on the corner exit then. He makes contact with the 44, and then it's his teammate that makes contact, Elliot Veyron, who makes contact with Dane Warren. It was Aaron Vasquez then that he made contact with. Here we go from up above, so he hits Vasquez, Vasquez hits Veyron, and then it's Veyron that actually hits Dane Warren, so kind of a little bit of a karma there effect.
What goes around comes around. I think that is something that is a true saying in motorsport for the most part. Much like we say with traffic, right? It gives and it takes, and for the most part, it equalizes out. There is this sort of karmic retribution that, for the most part, you do tend to see in the world of motorsport as we look at the points as they sit on the right-hand side. Again, a reminder, De Jong not here, so he's gone from leading in the points to now being, what, 45 behind new points leader Tristan Iglesias. Does have a quite considerable 21-point advantage over Florian Lebigra. That is almost a full sprint race victory.
Certainly is, yeah. So Iglesias right now at the head of the field, but when we go to the second page, Bryn Collins, who's just in the cut line, Sipila now 10 points as things stand. Well, Sipila, Maciejewski and Beckham Jasia. So Beckham Jasia with the run that he's having this week so far, after missing the opening round and after having not the best of races last week, moving himself up in towards contention for a qualification spot here.
You know what I'm getting a great idea for right now? This is going way off the reservation, but to be fair, I stayed up till 3 last night commentating on the iRacing Bathurst 1000, so I'm already a bit delirious from that. But we've got plenty of gravel here. Mitchell de Jong's off doing rallycross this weekend, right? Porsche, I know you're listening to us in chat. Can you loan us a couple of Porsche Dakars? Can we get some sim racers out to Laguna Seca? And can we have a slalom course set up the corkscrew? But like, I'm not talking about the track. I'm talking about on the infield, the climb to the corkscrew. Let's have a one-on-one tournament and let's see who the best sim racer is off-road. I get the feeling it'll probably be Mitchell de Jong.
And I think if we're going to be proposing that, then we need to make sure that there's representation for the broadcast team as well out there in person. I think
we need to test it.
Fair.
Yeah, test it first. They did do that at Wrenchport Reunion, Paul. They said, was it Porsche Cayennes? I think they were Cayennes. So you could get a shuttle ride up to the corkscrew. The problem was the line was so long, and I didn't want to wait because I'm impatient, as people sometimes tend to be. So I ended up walking up, which felt like a great idea until I was winded at the very top, and then had to try and slip and slide my way down to the very bottom because it was very loose sand. Gotta say, this perspective does not tell you how drastic, how severe the elevation really is when you're there in person.
There speaks somebody who's had to walk to the top of the corkscrew, and well, I'm somebody who's speaking from the experience of walking up the Eau Rouge Radion section of Spa, so I've got that experience myself of steep climbs at racetracks, and as somebody who's maybe not the fittest, not as fit as he used to be, I certainly struggled with that one, that is for sure, but I think most people would struggle with that.
Yeah, GT3 car is flat over the top of Eau Rouge and Radion now, which is absolutely mind-blowing. If you put me on a bike, I would definitely not be flat all the way. I'd probably stop unless I got enough of a run-up and I was going fast enough that I didn't have to pedal to go up the hill. I think I'd probably roll backwards, but that's neither here nor there. Matti Sipila, we talked about him being timid in the first race. We're about halfway through. Has he just been biding his time right now? Can he start to be a bit more aggressive? As they sit right now, 1st through 7th positions, there's only 2 non-Contender cars as Labigra goes off the road, hits that inside curve, and we know how brutal it can be. He doesn't run wide. The door gets open, though, for Bryn Collins to take a look.
Oh, my goodness, and in one quick moment, turn number 6 takes a victim right there. That's why we say it's the most difficult corner on the track. And Labigra now needs to just keep his focus. He can't let himself get upset with himself. But it's so easy if you turn in just that little bit of, say, 6 to 8 inches earlier, you just clip that inside sausage curb and it just pushes you wide.
It is the scariest and it's the most dangerous corner on the track. There is no ifs or buts about it. The corkscrew takes all the headlines for its elevation change, but there's nothing that compares to the corner before it that leads you on to the Rahal Straight. It's, I've got to say, people know that I like my Indy car, I like my Porsche Cup cars as well, but this track with an Indy car, that corner, I still sometimes get scared in the sim driving it. I can't imagine what that's like for these drivers in the real world. A little bit further back in the pack as we check in with Elvis Rankin, who, remember, came into this round up there in points. Not been the easiest day. I wonder if, as Gariboli goes around, or rather by look at the other one of the Apex Racing Academy cars.
And I think there's a couple others who've got caught up in that. Costa is one of those as well. Lasse Bach and Luis Belique both have black flags. And yeah, that's quite a big one. And the problem for Leo Gariboli there is you hold your brakes, you're told, hold your brakes, be predictable in where you are. He just gets the slightest of touches from behind, and then he's holding his brakes, he's let the car go forward, and that's brought him onto the racing line and bang, wipes out 2 cars.
Well, you know, you say the car rolled forward. Yeah, that is so, and I think the real issue here is look at Pascal Costa on board. He's got no idea what's happening until it's too late. You can see the hook to the left as he tries to avoid it, but that time it's way too late. There is no chance that he was going to get out of that one. Just unfortunate to say the very least. Still, though, focused on Moreno Seca and Elvis Rankin all as we get ready to hit the halfway mark of this main race.
Yeah, and well, it's Elliot Veyron who was one of those involved. It was a grid and go car on the inside there of Costa, which meant that there's nowhere that you can go in that situation other than just hit the brakes hard and hope that they get out the way. But yeah, big contact there. In the real world, that'd be a safety car. You'd possibly be looking at potentially a red flag for debris. But here in the sim, we carry on racing. And what racing we are getting. This is Moreno Seca in 16th place then. We'll look at him from his onboard camera. And behind him, under pressure then, from the recovering driver of Elvis Rankin. Elvis is had it tough this race, I think it's safe to say, but it's a gain of 9 positions for him. But Seca, well, he's experienced in this in Porsche Tacor Esports Super Cup. He won't be just a walkover.
He needs a result, though. He's 11th in points coming into today. Elvis Rankin tries a bit of a pinch and a squeeze, but a bit too early on the turn-in and has to back out of that, open up the steering wheel as they work down to the entry of the corner. Moreno Seca just going to place the car exactly where he needs to go. Points go down all the way to 25th, so they're still fighting over, you know, a decent share of points at this point. And that's one thing at this level of motorsport. There is only ever going to be one winner in the field of 33 drivers, 32 here racing today. If you finish 5th, that's still a pretty good finish. If you finish 10th, that could still be a very good finish. You can't beat yourself up if you're not winning or being on the podium in every single race. That's how Diogo Pinto won his championship a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just grinding points out, grinding out results, and yeah, that gets you results, gets you prizes. And it's why I mentioned last week. I did say it last week. In a race like we had last week where there was a high attrition rate, even if you're miles behind, you get yourself a penalty. You just carry on and get yourself whatever points that you can do. Here's Will Chadwick. Speaking of last week, feature race winner last week, finds himself in 4th after losing that place at the start to Oscar Pai, and he's been able to hang on to the back of that Contender Esports driver.
Sim racer lean in effect for several of these drivers. Will Chadwick known for his lean. Again, I think this is what exactly he would have wanted right after last week, the win. Just continue to put in some solid finishes and keep himself inside of the top 8 of both the sprint and the main race. You can't really ask for much more than that, because this is what you and I were talking about last week. Whoever wins the Contender Series Championship, that will be something that is very much something they'll be proud of. But it's not that important. The only thing that's important is getting to the Super Cup, being one of the 15 or so drivers that get the call up from this series. So whether you're 1st, whether you're 15th, doesn't really matter, because you start from the same point, 0 at the start of 2025. Look at the points on the right-hand side. Tristan Iglesias still at the front.
It certainly is as a live championship points as things stand right now. And yeah, as we drop down the order, Jakub Maciejewski then 11 points behind Bryn Collins now. So Collins, in moving forward, is just helping himself be a little bit more secure in that top 15. But it's still fine margins, and we've seen how just a driver can have just either one really bad week or a really good week for somebody as well, can really turn things around in this Contender Series.
Yeah, what's the maximum points that you can get? 85, I guess, technically, right? If you qualify on pole, grab the sprint race win, so that's 10 and 25, and then 50 for the feature race as well. But I think that's going to be rather hard to come by in this sort of a championship, with the stakes being what they are, and therefore, willingness and the propensity of drivers to battle being just that little bit higher as we look at Maciejewski's on board. You can see his name card over his shoulder from the Esports World Cup. That's one of those things from the in-person LAN events, Paul, that it's always great that the drivers are able to take home, right? Anything that has their name on it, you know, reminds them of where they were. Always cool to see that little bit of memorabilia being taken back home.
Do you know, I never get memorabilia from in-person events.
Really?
No, because they always do like little gift bags and things like that for the drivers and the competitors, but they forget about us media people as well.
The Porsche USA, they treated me nicely. I've got a Gran Turismo Vision GT diecast somewhere. There's like one of 250. Porsche, you need to treat Paul better.
Porsche.
Yes.
Well, as we carry on here, Will Chadwick still putting the pressure on Oscar Pye, but Xander Reed, Tristan Iglesias behind, along with Michael Jarney. I think it's pretty much just them staying as they are. Matty Sippala, though, he'll be feeling a little bit better. I think he would be disappointed in how he lost that top 8 position in the sprint race. Getting back into the top 8 here, I mean, it's nice, but he would have preferred to have been starting right at the front of the field.
No, 100%. And he's not inside of the top 15 right now, right? So he needs the points. He doesn't want to leave it to the very last race of the season. That's asking for a lot. I would not want to be put in that place, to say the very least. And you know, a counterpoint to that, right, is look at Rogers. I'll just bring this point up again. Struggled in qualifying, right? Was down in 17th, fought his way forward in the sprint race, took advantage of that reverse grid to start on the outside of the front row for this 20-lap main event, and it's pulled away a gap up front. And I think at this point we can start to say we're expecting Josh Rogers back in the Porsche Esports Super Cup in 2025. And so we've got a bit of a fight. Are we going to get Josh Rogers or Sebastian Jobe as the first ever 3-time champion of the series? Flip a coin. I have no idea. I have no idea.
What I find really interesting, and it's an interesting stat, is nobody has ever been able to defend their championship in the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup. It's never been done back to back. So could you have Sebastian Jobe? Bearing in mind, look at how that his team, his team, and also the Team Redline team all sort of worked together to try and help their teams perform best in that championship. Will they rally around Sebastian to maybe say, right, come on, let's get you a back-to-back and get you a 3-time championship? But there's some big competition with all the champions on the grid.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that because you've got Pinto, Caruso, but more pertinently, for the first time in quite a while, I feel, we officially are going to see a proper head-to-head between Redline and Coanda. It's not to say that Coanda haven't had their, you know, representation in the series in the last couple of years. You know, Charlie Collins, Zach Campbell been very quick. They've signed Jordan Caruso now as well, of course. But it's now even more, right? It's more drivers, more resources being put behind the program. And so if we end up in a situation with, it's a 30-car grid, and basically between 15 and 20 of the drivers are Coanda and Redline affiliated. Can you imagine what that's going to mean in terms of the games, the shenanigans, and everything that we're going to get, Paul? We're not going to be able to keep up with it, and there's going to be a lot of drama. I think that's one way of saying it.
You'll also going to be able to see 2 commentators not be able to pick out which driver is which on track because there's so many of the different...
No. This is why bless Drew Adamson for...
Yes.
You're only allowed 4 cars to look similar before you've got to change your paint scheme. So at least there's a little bit of a helping hand for the commentators in the booth.
Sippala has dropped a place to bring Collins. We just saw it in the distance on that onboard shot. So I think it was turn 6 claiming enough a victim there, just pushing out wide. Has to slow down that little bit, and that allows Bryn Collins to move up into the top 8 here in this main race. No, you do touch a good point there, but they're still all working together. And you can guarantee that I will still get names wrong of cars.
Yes, 100%. See, now, what we clearly need to be able to do, Paul, is we need to convince the drivers to put their... You remember the car that I ran in the All-Stars last year, as we look at what Seepola did, and a small slip-up, one position loss. We need the Contender drivers to all race a car with their face on it.
I mean, that is certainly something. It might cause people nightmares, and we have to have a warning before the start of the broadcast. You know,
but at least we can tell who is who.
Yes, that's true, yes. Josh Rogers, 4.5 seconds is his lead at the front as we've got drivers off. Oh, that was...
Iglesias.
Iglesias, my goodness, what's happened to him? That's down at turn 5.
And I tell you what, very lucky on the rejoin not to get collected by, I think that was Aaron Vasquez in the Apex Racing Team machine. He doesn't look like too much, the brief shake of the head. I'm almost 100% sure, Paul, that was all by himself. Self-inflicted mistake.
As they go through, then I'm sure we'll be rewinding the tapes, getting the Betamax in order and get that ready for a replay. But yes, certainly, here we go, the Iglesias. Oh, he just got too hot into the brakes, into the corner. Fortunately, iRacing have changed the gravel a couple of builds ago, which means that he didn't end up in the wall. I think that was helpful for him.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, at the very end of the day, he had the points lead by quite a margin, didn't need to fight too hard. And so now it leaves some of the others to try and grab a couple more points as a result of that. Maybe Bryn Collins, Florian Lebigra stacked up behind Matty Seepola, 3 laps to go, including the one that we're on right now. And look at the cut line. Bryn Collins right now, 12 points in front of Matty Seepola. Does he think it's worth the risk to try and move his way forward? They've got Florian Lebigra behind as well. Let's not forget, he will want to atone, Paul, for the mistake slightly earlier in this race.
Well, Seepola actually made it past Bryn on this lap as well, so Seepola getting back ahead and getting himself up into 7th place. So certainly Seepola up 3 places, Bryn Collins up 5 places, Elvis Rankin up 10, Bobby Zelensky up 8. You got Andrew Caron up 7, Rafael Silva up 8 as well, down towards the bottom end of the top 25 out there. But yeah, those live standings with that cut-off, Bryn Collins actually losing points now to Matty Seepola, so that's a 2-point change between the two of them switching positions.
And all it takes is one mistake like that, and suddenly the margin up front suddenly somewhat smaller. Does that mean that Iglesias has got a bit more pressure on his shoulders? Because I'm looking at Elvis Rankin, I'm still trying to figure out exactly why he's a little bit off the pace today. He has moved up in this main race, started down in 27th spot. He's up in 17th, but given the start to the season that we saw from him, right? 1 races in both of the opening 2 rounds. Was this one where he took his eye off the ball slightly? Maybe there were some other things to prepare for and focus on. But Tristan Iglesias, is he going to have that sort of a mindset shift coming up in the next couple of weeks? Who knows? These drivers always have a fairly busy schedule. 1 more lap to go next time by, though. Is Will Chadwick going to try and fight his way forward onto the podium to close out the day's proceedings?
I think if I'm Will, I only make the move if there's an opportunity. If you don't want to force it and get yourself a penalty through this, there's the live standings on the right-hand side of your screen right now. Tristan Iglesias still at the front, provisionally ahead of Michael Gianni, Florian Lebigra. Rogers up into 4th place now in the championship as things stand. Final lap has started, and it's Josh Rogers who's leading by just over 5 seconds over Beckham Josiah. And then Josiah is a further just under 3 seconds ahead of Oscar Pye, who's battling away with Will Chadwick right now. This is for the final step on the podium, Arjuna. As I say, I don't try and force the move here if I'm Will.
You're thinking, okay, you're not expecting a move from behind. If there's an opportunity, I'll take it. And very important, Paul, to consider, right? Officially, we are going to be halfway through this Contender series at the end of this race. Zolder and Sachsenring to come. I think that's a lot of unknown. Before the final round at Spa, which you and I, we've commentated on our fair share of races at Spa. These drivers have done their fair share of races. So the next 2 rounds going to be crucial. If any drivers on the bubble have had a bad result from this, they've got to bounce back. Will Chadwick, though, thinking the opposite. I've had a good result, don't need to force the issue. Let me take the points I've got in the bag.
Yeah, certainly as they go through towards the end of the lap. But one driver who has had it pretty much all his own way in this second race, Josh Rogers, took the lead at the end of the first lap and has never looked back since. He's a race winner here in the feature race of week 3 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Rebecca Garcia, good result for him. Second place here ahead of Oscar Pai. Simone Marcheno, I want to point out, has got a black flag on the last lap. Oh dear, it goes from bad to worse for Simone. I think this has been a Contender Series to forget about here. But rest of your field working their way through. Barney almost giving himself a separated shoulder, waving the flag that hard. Well, Arjuna, that was quite the race, which had shenanigans at the start, and then it all seemed to just settle down, and it was just the odd mistake here and there that cost people places.
And just a reminder, even if Josh Rogers qualifies poorly, you can never count him out. Remember, started down in 17th, ends 30 laps of racing after charging his way all those positions forward, and a well-earned result for him as well, as we reach the halfway mark of this Contender Series, Paul, and we're not far away from 2025, not far away from knowing which drivers will make it to the Esports Super Cup.
Certainly. Let's take a look at the provisional race results then for the main race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series Week 3. And it's Josh Rogers for Contender Esports who wins by 5.5 seconds over Beckham Garcia in second place. Oscar Pai makes it a Coanda 1-3 here today, finishing third ahead of Will Chadwick in fourth. Sander Reed in fifth ahead of Michael Gianni, Matti Sipola and Bryn Collins, with Florian Labigra in ninth ahead of Daniel Pashto, rounding out your top 10. Carlos Fenolosa then in 11th ahead of Julian Sonin in 12th place. Nicolas Mateo and Aaron Vasquez are the next 2 drivers ahead of Tristan Iglesias, who had that moment down at turn number 5. Moreno Sarica and the hard-charging Elvis Rankin 10 places gained in that race into 17th ahead of Bobby Zelensky, Jakub Maciejewski and Roger Christensen. Then it's Rafael Silva ahead of Dame Warren. Bad day at the office for Dame Warren. Andrew Caron with some points in 23rd ahead of Quentin Violate and Leo Gariboli. Chunye Zhang finishes officially ahead of Simone Marcheno, and then drivers who did not finish: Elliot Veyron, Lasse Bach, Pascal Costa, Luis Belique and Daniel Savini, your 32 drivers who took to the start of this race. Well, Arjuna, it's a story of 2 races there, really, isn't it? And it was all about starting at the front of the field to get yourself the best result.
And less chaos than last week, Paul. I wonder what changed. Was it the weather? Oh, yeah, no, we didn't have any of that pesky rain today, and the drivers seemed to enjoy the grip that they had as a result of that one. And the points shaped up very, very finely right now as well. I think that's what's making this a really fun Contender Series. We've had, yes, some drivers look strong, but no driver has, in every race, been consistent, stayed out of trouble. And even though Rogers has fought his way back, yes, and in a very, very comfortable position, I think the next couple of rounds, some tight tracks, qualifying's a big jeopardy question to wonder. We're in for a real treat with Circuit Zolder up next.
Yeah, certainly. We're hoping to speak to a couple of your drivers here this evening after that event. But yeah, Zolder's going to be quite an intriguing round of the championship next time out, that is for sure. We do have 3 of your drivers awaiting an interview, so why don't we go and speak to the main race victor, Josh Rogers, who'll be with Arjuna Kankapati.
Have a chat with the race winner, who did show a quick smile at the end of that race. Josh, tell us what you're feeling right now, halfway through this Contender Series. How's it been going from your perspective in that Coanda Esports number 92?
Yeah, it's I wasn't expecting that today. After qualifying P16 with a mistake, I yeah, I was just going to try and salvage what I could, but the car felt amazing. Honestly, massive credit to everyone in the team for all the work that they've put into it. Not only this season, this week, but also in the qualifying series. It's really set us up well for a strong result here. And yeah, I don't know. I felt really good. I felt comfortable pushing and attacking, which is something that I didn't really feel in the last rounds. And I also, yeah, I don't know, just I felt one with the car today, which was nice.
Does it help that you've been able to focus a bit more just on iRacing, I guess, in the last couple of weeks? Haven't had to split your summer, you know, jumping across sims, or is that maybe not such a factor from your perspective?
No, I think it's okay. Honestly, an important skill as a sim racer is to be able to jump between sims. Naturally, there's racing going on everywhere, but no, I feel comfortable jumping back into iRacing again. Yeah, obviously it's something different to get used to, but ultimately being able to adapt is an important thing. And yeah, I kind of I don't know. It doesn't really feel like I've been away for so long, but no, it feels good, and hopefully, you know, we can continue this momentum and get back into the championship where we've had so much success.
Looking forward to seeing how the rest of the Contender series goes, Josh. We'll see you next week as we roll on for the second half of the season.
Cheers. Thank you.
From Josh Rogers to Beckham Jasir in the Williams Esports number 12. Beckham, a great result for you. How are you feeling right now, of course, putting the car on the podium and really showing some strong pace over the course of the day?
Yeah, it's definitely a better round than the Okayama round. We struggled a lot in Okayama. But yeah, I'm happy to get in the top 10 in the quali. The pace wasn't the best. The setup we probably could have worked on a little bit, but it was good effort from everyone in the Williams team. I'm very happy with the pace we had.
And so what's your thinking right now going into the second half of the season? Of course, Okayama, a bit of a struggle, didn't see you in round one, so a bit on the back foot, but we know the speed is there, the potential's there. What are you going to be looking to show us in the second half of the season?
Honestly, just consistency I think is the key here. Just getting into that reverse grid top 8 is just the goal right now in these races. So yeah, I'll just try to be consistent.
It's exactly what you want to hear from a driver getting ready to push himself into the back half of the Porsche Tag Car Esports Super Cup Contender Series. One more chat with Oscar Pai in the 54 Coanda Esports entry. And Oscar, great to see you on the podium and being able to work your way forward in that second race of the day. How are you feeling with the Contender Series now 3 races done, with 3 races still left to go? Oh, we can't hear you, Oscar. Do we have a copy?
Yeah.
There we go.
My bad. Yeah, quite happy about this result. Yeah, it was first 2 rounds. I missed first round, so obviously it wasn't ideal. And then second round was, you know, with the rain, a little chaotic. Like it was hard to stay on the track and also to make moves. And so yeah, having a good round here is pretty nice.
How are you feeling about the second half of the season? We've got some interesting tracks, Zolder, Sachsenring, and Spa-Francorchamps to come. How do you feel your performance is going to be there, knowing that you're just trying to get as many points on the board and hoping to get into the top 15 at the end of the season?
Yeah, three track, 2 new track and also Spa the rebuild. So it's gonna be interesting learning them and trying to find the best setup possible on this track. And yeah, I think it's gonna be enjoyable.
Looking forward to it. Oscar Pai joins us from 3rd position with his biggest fan behind him as well. But Paul, that's our post-race coverage coming to a close, and now we can look forward to what's still yet to come in the second half of the season.
You were trying to make me laugh and get a coughing fit going again, weren't you? So you could get more airtime. No, yes, certainly great stuff to see. Always good to hear from you drivers there as well. And Zolder, it was touched on quite a bit. Next time out, I mean, this is a notoriously difficult track to overtake at. And certainly it's going to be a real challenge for these drivers to, again, not having to deal with not invalidating qualifying lap.
And, you know, it's a track that I've commentated on, but never with this car before. So I'm looking forward to it, to seeing how it goes off into turn 1. That's always going to be its own little contentious spot. But that chicane on the first lap, that's going to be really interesting as well. And then, Paul, I think one thing we know is if you struggle in this round and you're in the mix for the top 15, it will be do or die with 2 rounds of the championship left after that. Not long left to go on the road to the Super Cup.
Let's take a look at how things stand. Preliminary standings then. Tristan Iglesias and Michael John is sharing the top of the standings, but Florian Lebigra not that far back either. Josh Rogers, further a couple of points back for him in 4th place. Mitchell de Jong missing this week, drops down to 5th ahead of Elvis ranking. Carlos Fenolosa, Will Chadwick still there in the top 8 with Xander Reed and Julian Sonin. But it's that top 15 that's the real intriguing one. And you look at it right now, Matteo, Sarika and Collins, only a few points covering those drivers. But then those drivers on the outside looking in, Sipala, Maciejewski, Jasia. You have to say those drivers need a good second half of the season, along with Dane Warren down in 20th.
I'll go out on a limb and say Beckham Jasir is in the Super Cup next year. Now, if he's in the top 15, not quite sure about that. He might still be 16th and make it in, but that's the sort of margin that we're going to be talking about. 3 points between 13th, 14th, and 15th. Paul, we could end up in a situation where it's one position that determines the cut line, determines who is in the Super Cup in the fight for $200,000 next year.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you all company here today. From myself, Paul Smith, Arjuna Kankapati with Hugo Luis behind the scenes on production. We'll see you next week at the same time, same place for round number 4 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. But from everybody here, it's goodbye.